I'm attempting to complete every single Gamecube game, and I'm using a random number generator to pick the next game. Last episode, we drove a lot of Mini Coopers in the Italian Job, and in this episode, we're going to experience the worst possible life for children in Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events was released on November 10th, 2004, and was developed by Adrenium Games and published by Activision. This game was surprisingly a lot of fun and was able to keep its gameplay fresh by using different gaming genres. Before we get started, make sure to like this video because it helps out the channel, and subscribe if you're new so you don't miss out on any of the future games. Without further ado, this is my experience with Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. In Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, we're going to complete the main story to consider this one complete. The game starts with a cutscene that is hand-drawn inside of a book. That's the best way to describe it, I think. I like the way these look because it pays homage to the book series. These also feel a bit better than having cutscenes with the in-game graphics for every single thing that happens in the game, so I like the little mix. If you don't know, A Series of Unfortunate Events follows three siblings that have very bad luck in life and always end up in unfortunate events. This is the beginning of their story, with their parents dying and them becoming orphans and eventually ending up with their uncle, Count Olaf, which I'm not sure if he's ever said to be their real uncle. Is he their uncle? I don't think he's their uncle for real, is he? When the actual game opens up, our uncle, quote unquote, Olaf, tells us that we need to take care of a rat problem within the mansion before we can do anything else. He attempts to be nice when telling us this, but we already know he's not authentic. This game plays as a mix of platformer, action-adventure, and puzzle game. That's the best way I would describe it. We can run around in an area and jump and attack enemies. We also have to figure out puzzles to advance the plot, and when Violet invents things, we have to figure out how each piece will connect to one another. The gameplay in this game is smooth, and I didn't have many issues with it. Sunny, the youngest sibling, is so small that she can fit into really tiny places, and we get these side-scrolling sections where we're either sliding down something or jumping over gaps. I really liked this part because it made the game feel very different, and Sunny was just a goofy character that I was always wanting to learn more about during my playthrough. Sunny also has the sharpest teeth of all time and is able to chew her way through metal pipes and wood along our journey. I don't know why she can do this, but it's an interesting ad. During each section of the game, we can collect puzzle pieces throughout the level. These puzzle pieces will allow us to open up secret areas to get artwork from the game and behind the scenes stuff. You don't need to collect them for game progression, but I ended up 100%ing this game, so I collected everything I could find. When creating an invention, it shows all the pieces you've collected, and you have to place them in the right place on the base object. This is pretty easy because it will show you a giant X once you find the area that needs the piece to be added to. I wanted to show this off because we'll be doing this a lot throughout the game. The first invention we make is for Klaus. He's the boy, and he can punch using a boxing glove, which will take out the rats that are all over the mansion. This thing packs a heavy punch. It not only allows us to take down enemies, we can now break pots around the mansion that have puzzle pieces and health inside of them. We get a cutscene about the secrets in each level, but I already talked about them, so I don't think we need to go further into it. Then we run into our first boss. None of these bosses in this game have names. They're just Olaf's henchmen. So the first one is Fork Guy or something. The bosses in this game are usually pretty easy, and you just have to dodge around until they taunt you, and then you can hit them to take their health down. Fork Guy likes to throw meatballs at us, and at first I wasn't sure how to deal with this fight. But we were able to take him down by just punching him a lot. After every boss fight, we get this little cutscene where they curse us or something, as they're all dazed from losing to us. We get his giant fork for taking him out, so it was worthwhile at least. Our next boss fight isn't really a boss, but he gets a cutscene like a boss. But this dude throws barrels down the hallway at us, and we have to avoid them and get close enough to punch him once. And then that's it. So it's not really a boss fight. It's really easy, and I don't know why he got the boss cutscene. He's not a boss. He's very weak. Finally, we have collected enough objects to create Violet's next invention, which is a tomato shooting gun thing. This will allow us to take things down from range and not have to directly get next to them in order to do damage. We can shoot this gun in first person mode, which makes aiming a bit easier. As we're exploring the mansion, we have to fight a giant spider using the tomato gun. This was pretty hard, and I actually lost all my health the first time because I didn't know I had to take out the small spiders between hitting the big spider. But we were able to take it out and move on to the next area of the game. Olaf tells us we have to cook dinner, but we don't know how to make anything, so we go next door because the lady there has a huge library. We head there and she tells us if we return all of her books, she will give us a recipe book to help us make dinner. Each book in the library is themed, and you have to find the right place to put it in a specific amount of time. There was one about gardens, and there's another about the ocean. I really like this part because it challenged you to get to the right pedestal in the quickest time. Once we return all of her books, she tells us that she has a cookbook in the top corner of the library, but it's under construction, so we'll have to figure out how to get to it. This is when our girl Sunny comes into play again. But first, we have to build her a jetpack, because why wouldn't the coolest character in the story have the coolest item? This section with Sunny is more similar to a side-scroller, where you have to figure out the right timing for jumping and using objects to change the area to advance further. I don't know where this is taking place at, because this is huge compared to the library we're in. Once we complete that mission with Sunny, we get the cookbook and find out that we can make a pasta dinner with limited skill and ingredients. So that's what we're about to do. But first, I wanted to get the secret in this area, which is behind a picture that is actually a door. What? No way, sliding picture door? When we return to the mansion, Olaf yells at us about leaving and explains that he could never act on an empty stomach, and it's all our faults for not having dinner ready yet. We need some piano wire because I guess we're going to Hitman take him out or something. I can't remember what we needed it for, but this part has you playing Guitar Hero and hitting the right notes when they get to the music circle on the screen. It makes us do this multiple times, but gets faster every time. Pretty easy, but these little changes in the gameplay make the game not immediately get old and boring. Once we collect all the items we need, Violet is able to create stilts that go from tall to short with a press of a button. These are cool, but you don't really use them all that much during the playthrough of this game. We use them to open the switch for the door to the cellar, so we can go down there and get the ingredients we need. And then when we get down there, we find that the basement is flooded with swamp acid that we have to use the stilts to walk through. Once we get to the other side, we have to drain the swamp acid, and then Klaus can run to where we are currently, but he'll have to kill some rats on his way there. There is another section with Sunny that has us running in the pipes and stuff and butt slamming the rats to take them out along the way. We find the olives for our dish last and complete the cellar section of the mansion. This will be the longest area in the game, and then after this, the sections get shorter and shorter. We get another book cutscene where Olaf tells us how bad the dish is and it's gross. He locks us in our room because of it, I guess. He's an evil dude. We escape out of the window where he has henchman guards that are on a walkway in the pouring rain. Why did they like this man so much? Did he promise them money or something? If the guards see us during this part, we have to start over at the beginning of the walkway. We can attack them when they turn their back to us. It makes this much easier. At the end of the walkway, we find our way into Count Olaf's room and find a skeleton key that will let us open any door in the mansion. He can't stop us now. We open a safe, and this is when the kids find out that once he gets guardianship of them, if something happens to them, he gets all of their inheritance that they're getting from their parents. He apparently has plans to kill us at some point. We now make the plan to escape because we know we can't stay there, and we need to talk to the adoption agent. We run into the next major boss of the game, which I'll call the Dancing Sisters because that's what they do when fighting them. They use some ballet moves to travel the room we're in. We have to use Violet's tomato gun and shoot them when the spotlight hits one of them. They share health bars, so this isn't all that bad. We take them out with little to no trouble and then get a cutscene where they curse us because we're vile children and Olaf shouldn't have to deal with us. We build a contraption that Sunny cuts the rope with her teeth and drops a bowling ball on a metal plate. That will let us escape from the mansion. Violet is super smart when she's making stuff during this game. Olaf captures us and then takes us on a nice Sunday drive, where he locks the car and leaves us on a railroad track to get hit by a train. He's a maniac. This part has us pressing a button at the right time to shoot this doll head thing at the switch for the train to take a different track that we're not just currently sitting on. We have to time the hit on this bar at the bottom of the screen. The game only gives us a minute to do it, but it's so easy that it doesn't take more than like 20 seconds. The adoption agent shows up and we tell him about Olaf, so he decides to take us away from Olaf, but before we leave, he tells us that he'll show up again and we won't even know because he's the master of disguise. We get sent to our Uncle Monty's house, a man that has traveled the world and has like a zoo at his house. A dude that loves snakes maybe a little too much. He wants to take us to Peru but tells us that we have to show him that we could handle being there and gives us some tasks to do around the yard. We create flying shoes for Klaus, which is pretty neat, but I don't think they would work at all. Just saying. Look how sketchy these things are. I feel like you would have to do a split with them so that they wouldn't touch each other, and then stop, and then you'd fall and get hurt. Anyways, we have to climb up this tree thing in a platform section of this level. Then we have to clear out some bees using the tomato gun. These are some giant bees. I would not want to live anywhere near them. Look how massive these things are. It's the size of Violet's head. Once we complete those tasks, someone rings the doorbell and shows up at the door. It's a man claiming he wants to talk to Uncle Monty because of his knowledge. But the kids are like, that's Olaf. That's a terrible disguise. The kids are smart and every adult in this game has no brain. That's how we can sum it up. Monty is like, no, that's nonsense. Let our visitor in. Monty tells us to collect a bunch of snakes that are in cages outside. So Violet turns her tomato gun into like a vacuum cleaner that allows us to suck up the snakes and keep them in a bag at the back of the device. We do some acid water walking again, and then begin opening the snake cages and adding them to our collection of snakes in a bag. A brand new kids game! Sunny gets to slide down a giant tree, which this part looks pretty fun, besides the thorns on the plants wrapped around the parts of the tree. But other than that, I would love to do this myself. On to the next major boss of the game. I'll call this guy the Snake Whisperer. In this boss fight, we have to switch between Klaus and Violet, which is the first time the game does this, so I was excited for this fight. First, we have to use Violet and collect all the snakes that are around him in our new vacuum cleaner. And then he jumps down off the fountain and starts to shoot frogs at us, and causing these little earthquake things that will hurt us. As Klaus, we have to avoid the frogs and get close enough to him so we can punch him in the face. Then he'll switch back until we take down all of his health and it gets to 0. We take him out with very little health, and then we collect what is called Monty's Key, which looks like a snake of some sort. He is obsessed with snakes. This allows us to get to his wildlife room and return all the snakes we have collected into the indoor cages. I don't really know why we wouldn't just have taken the cages that they were already in. But I don't know, maybe they just didn't want to make multiple trips. We run into another boss fight with a woman that I will refer to as Safari Lady. Her fight is similar to the Dancing Sisters, but she is trying to spray us with perfume. I don't know how this would hurt us, to be honest, but she's pretty easy to deal with. We created a lucky lockpick out of like a paintbrush and a pair of tweezers. And we were able to get access to a giant makeup kit that would allow for Olaf to look like anyone he chose to look like. It has so much stuff. When picking the lock, we have to play a game of Simon. We have to remember the pattern of the lock and just hit the right directions in the same order that they light up in. Easy, but a nice little addition to keep things fresh and fun. Finally, we have gotten into the giant makeup kit, and this thing folds out like Inspector Gadget style. There is so much stuff in this thing, it must weigh an absolute ton. As we're about to bring our evidence to light, we find out that Uncle Monty was attacked by one of his snakes, and he's dead. The problem here is that the snake that bit him isn't known to attack and wouldn't be able to kill him anyways. We know that Olaf is behind this somehow. Sunny goes on an adventure in the rafters to get to the snake cage to show how friendly the deadly viper actually is. Look at her cute little dance moves after completing the rafter climbing. We get another book cutscene that shows Olaf trying to escape, saying he has tickets to Purdue, and then the kids get sent to Aunt Josephine's house. She lives on top of a mountain thing on an island. She's scared of everything, but lives in the most dangerous possible place. Isn't that ironic? As soon as we arrive, a mysterious sailor shows up and sweet talks his way into her house. And we get told to make our way down to town and get supplies for the hurricane that is coming. We get into a boss fight with a man carrying a massive anchor. He's easy because we just have to jump over the earthquake effect when he slams it down, and then we punch him in the face. We take down Anchorman, and then he curses us because all bosses in this game is in Olaf's back pocket and we're the problem. We immediately get into another boss fight with a woman that throws bread at us. Bread throwing lady is what I would call her. The boss fight is extremely easy, and you run left to right and then right to left to avoid her throwing bread. And then when she takes a break, you shoot her with a tomato gun. I almost had a flawless run in this fight, but then I got distracted by my Twitch chat and got hit. If you're not already, follow me on Twitch at Reisigo. We take her out with no problem anyways and are able to create a new gun that shoots peppermints at things. This does more damage than Tomato's gun, I guess. I don't really understand how things work in this universe. It shoots much faster for sure though. Then we get this on-rail portion of the game where we have to take down henchmen and crabs using peppermints. The henchmen will also throw fish and stuff at us. This part was really fun, and I wanted more missions like that. Once we complete the on-rail section, we have to shoot our peppermint gun at the crane and make the dude controlling it drop the crate on the dock of the island and not into the ocean. We grab the last item on Aunt Josephine's list, which are her grammar books. Don't know why she needed them, but here we are. We get back to our house, and the hurricane has torn the house apart, which separates us, and we need to travel through this house and meet back up. This part is interesting because it has a bunch of platforming using the helicopter shoes, and Violet finds an umbrella, and we can float around like Mary Poppins. The last part has Sunny running on broken support beams. She's fearless and the best out of the kids, 100%. We survive going through the house and find out that Aunt Josephine was forced into a cave under the island, and we have to go there and save her. We ask her if she's ready to head back. She says yes, and then we get on our boat and start getting attacked by leeches. This is a pretty easy part as well. We just have to shoot them before they reach Aunt Josephine. Each stage of this gets a bit harder, but overall it wasn't anything too bad. After we complete it, a boat shows up, and guess who it is? Count Olaf. He tells us he's there to save us from the leeches, he lets all the kids get on board, and leaves Aunt Josephine on the little boat to be attacked by the leeches. He's a murderer. That's straight up murder. He takes us back to the mansion and says that he isn't waiting for our money. He's going to marry Violet, and locks both Sunny and Klaus away. Now we have to find our way out and save Violet from Olaf. Klaus is able to invent his own object called the horrifying hook, which is basically a hook shot or something that allows for us to attach onto windows and slingshot our way up to it. We escape up the tower and slide our way on the awning of the tower. There are people trying to capture us with their flashlights, so we have to sneak around. We use the hook shot, and as we're climbing up, somebody opens the window and we're right next to them. And they're just like, hey, I don't see anything at all. Continue. We finally make it up to the top of the tower and find Sunny. Then Mr. Barrel Guy shows up and challenges us to another battle. He's leveled up since we last dealt with him. He's hiding in these trapdoors on the floor and throws barrels out at us. After avoiding a few, he'll jump out and we'll have to punch him in the face at that moment. This boss fight isn't hard, but does take a bit of patience for him to jump out of the floor. On to the final section of the game, Olaf is performing in a show in his private theater before he marries Violet, and he's holding the marriage certificate. So we have to use the spotlight and burn it. How this section works is that they're all dancing or something on the stage, and one of them are holding the certificate. We have to hit the right one to do any damage to it. We have limited amount of time to do so, and each time we are successful, another person comes onto the stage. Once we get it to about halfway, the game changes a bit. Now they're hiding behind props, and we have to take out the props and find the one that Olaf is behind and hit him. This part is a bit harder because they're shooting watermelons at us, but overall it's pretty simple yet again. Once we defeat him, we get another storybook cutscene that talks about how we were successful and that Olaf was sent to jail and we ended up living all happy afterwards. But then that ends up being a lie, and we get another story about how Count Olaf actually escaped from the mansion when the cops arrived, and how the children's parents were still dead and they were on their own again. And then the narrator tells us that he is doing his best to keep up with the fate of the children, and then the credits begin to roll. That's the end of Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. I think I would actually recommend this game because it does enough to keep the gameplay fresh and the story is pretty interesting. If you don't go for 100%, then this game is pretty short and a nice little playthrough. If you want to know what's next, stick around, but if not, thanks for watching and remember to subscribe, like, and share this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Our GameCube list here, and on the count of 3, we're going to figure out what we're playing next. So in 3, 2, 1. 191. What is it? What is it? What can it be? The Hobbit. Which is an action-adventure game. I remember owning this, but I don't remember if I've ever played it. But yeah, that's what's next, is The Hobbit.